Chutes and ladders, from tackles to turnbuckles. Hi, my name is Jason.
That's Josen.
All right, this episode, in the spirit of football coming back, we're actually going to revisit pro wrestlers that started off on the gridiron. We have a very extensive list. Please chime in. Please drop in. Please drop in any football players that we may have missed or that you actually want to discuss. The first one is very special to both Desiree and I, us being Florida State alumni, and Des actually meeting him at WrestleCon. Ron Simmons, tell us about your experience. Tell us everything.
Go FSU. It is the most wonderful time of the year. It's football season. It's going to be chilly. It's spooky season, and we get to watch football. So exciting. And our number one guy, Miss FSU, Ron Simmons. Obviously we know who he is as a wrestler, but I think he is just an accomplished football player. He played defensive tackle for FSU. He is a multiple Hall of Famer. He is an Orange Bowl Hall of Famer. He's an FSU Hall of Famer and a just college football Hall of Famer. He is amazing. And if you ever meet him in person and you are a Florida State Seminole, I suggest you bringing that up because his eyes will light up. And that's all he wants to talk about is how great the school is, how great the team is. And he is still a diehard football fan.
What's really cool about this too, obviously I used to work for Fox Sports. We actually used to do a show called In My Own Words, where we would actually interview former football players. Ron Simmons was one of them. Ron Simmons specifically said he actually grew up in a very small town in Georgia. He said that it was Georgia Bulldog country. And the reason why he actually chose Florida State was Bobby Bowden. A lot of people would actually link Ron Simmons' recruitment and coming into Florida State as part of what cemented that dynasty run, at least the beginning. And keep in mind, there's only been a handful of football players that have actually had their jersey retired, and he's one of them. And that is such a special honor, especially given how many great players came from Florida State. So this is obviously very special to us, but but also just not to mention just how much of an impact he had on the Florida State football program. He actually played pro football for a couple of years, and then he went on to go ahead and have a remarkable career in pro wrestling. He ended up winning the world title. Obviously, being an African American back in the late 80s, early 90s, that was not an easy decision, especially being in the quote unquote deep South. So he just continued to break all barriers. So this was so cool. And also, I want you to talk about how much he hates the Gators.
He despised them, and I love that because he do too. And can we mention how handsome this number 50 is?
Exactly. We
love you, Ron Simmons.
1,000,000%. All right, cool. That's amazing. Okay, the next one, and again, I know a lot of people think that Des and I, have this extensive meetings before, but about our episodes, and that's not necessarily the case. I did not know Braun Breaker actually had a football background, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, obviously he comes from a very athletic family. Both his father, Rick Steiner, and Uncle Scott Steiner are not only professional wrestlers, but they were also Michigan wrestlers through. So, and that's what Braun did. Braun wrestled, but he also played football. I believe he got a scholarship and played for Kennesaw State University. And then he was also signed to the Baltimore Ravens. And I believe it's just like a
practice squad
independent.
Player.
Yeah. So, and then he broke into wrestling, but you can tell, I mean, look at those spears, like look at his athletic ability. I mean, there's no doubt that he would have been a powerhouse on the field too.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And listen, just as reference, I know people know this, but just say not everyone understands how much of an honor it is to be a professional football player or even get a Division I scholarship. Just being on that practice squad, statistically speaking, you actually have a better chance of winning the lottery than making the NFL. So, I don't care if you made the practice squad for 2 hours. That is an honor a badge of honor that you can hold for the rest of your life. I mean, that's just amazing.
It's a big deal, especially in the South. Any kind of football player
Oh
is like
yeah,
put on a pedestal. We love them. So, yeah.
absolutely. Speaking of, maybe not having a great career, but I want to preface this. This particular person was undefeated as a collegiate wrestler, decided to do MMA. But before that, he actually, without even playing college football, decided he wanted to give it a shot and try out for the Minnesota Vikings. And he made the practice squad. Brock Lesnar. um, I just, I have to say this because if you were to ask me who are some of the greatest athletes of all time, just a blanketed statement, I'm going to go Deion Sanders, Bo Jackson, and I am going to put Brock Lesnar in there. And the fact that he just decided to try out to become a professional football player and make the practice squad without even playing college football was realistically he probably didn't even play high school football, or not to the best of his ability because he was so consumed with wrestling. This is just an amazing, amazing honor.
That completely blows my mind about him. And that just shows you what kind of athlete he is. Like, literally can adapt to anything because those are, they're different. But I mean, it does take a strength there and endurance. But he didn't have that background, especially a college or even in like a high school background, and just
Yeah.
walks on in. That's insane to me. But
It's
it's not even that. He's a wrestler and became an amazing icon for us. And then UFC,
yeah,
it's like he wakes up and goes, I think I might try to do this today, and just walks on in and does
absolutely.
it.
well, yeah. What's crazy is, I remember when he came in, like he won King of the Rings to get a title shot, and he beat The Rock. Like I think he was champion within a year, and they don't just do that to
Insane.
anyone. And granted, it worked because I mean, a guy that's just a specimen of like that type of specimen is just an athlete and everything. Look, all these years later, we're talking about like over 20 years later. Like, I mean, I know he has a little controversy now, but we're talking
Mhm.
about someone that is still a main eventer, and he's
Oh, yeah.
basically the one champion, if you want to call it that, that was a part-time champion, but they still gave him the belt. So that just goes to show you how much they revere him.
I mean, there's got to be some kind of athletic gene in him because look at his daughter, who is like the top tier in college. I don't know what she does. She does track and field or something like that, or like
Uh,
shot put.
Something like that. I actually don't know, but I mean, I'm not surprised. And whatever
It's
she's doing, I know she's going to
insane.
excel. Yeah.
And then he's got two boys with Sable that play hockey now. And I'm like, I can imagine how they're going to be in like 10 years. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. All right, next guy who Brock Lesnar actually had a feud with from time to time, and they had a couple of huge matches, obviously at WrestleMania. I think a lot of people do know that he came from a football background, but Goldberg. And this would I do remember the storyline when he first came to WCW, how he stole Mongo McMichael's ring. And that's kind of
Hmm.
how they kind of brought him in. And I just thought that was a really brilliant storyline. But also, listen, he played for the University of Georgia, who obviously UGA right now is sitting on top of the world. But then he played for the Atlanta Falcons. And again, talk about honor upon honor. And then obviously just dominated pro wrestling and was instantly champion. So, yeah, what do you have to say about him?
I mean, he's like a Brock Lesnar to me. Just like, I think it's their build and their intensity when they're in the ring. You can imagine getting hit by one of them on the field.
Yeah.
Like, the breath is being gonna be knocked out. Yeah, I mean, he's a Georgia Bulldog. Yeah, late 80s. Wasn't he signed by also was it the Rams or was it something else or was it the Falcons?
I
Or
thought it
did
was the
he go
Falcons. I'm pretty sure, I know he played for the Falcons. Maybe he signed on to the
okay?
Rams.
Because I could have sworn it was something about LA too, but hey, either way,
Yeah.
he's amazing. But
Yeah. And
you know
he's
how I
also
feel about him in the ring. But
absolutely. Listen, he's also boys with Deion Sanders, another Florida State guy. So
yeah, so he's cool. He's cool with us.
absolutely. Okay, then next one, arguably the greatest of all time for professional wrestling. A lot of people are very well aware. of his football background. Obviously, went to a school that you and I don't care for, but you got to give him his props. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, obviously being a hurricane, and actually playing for the CFL, which again, that's a huge honor. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, but he won a national title. He goes on to dominate pro wrestling. And yeah, I can only say so much about him, but what do you have to chime in on here?
He's awesome. So I don't have much to say.
Yeah,
He's always going to be a favorite. And we know that, he's amazing in the ring. He's going to be amazing on the field. Granted, I mean, he's a hurricane, so, whatever, but I get it. He's a South Florida guy.
yeah.
But, it is what it is. Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure, for sure. All right, well, so we're gonna transition over to his cousin, Roman Reigns, who played defensive tackle for Georgia Tech.
Hmm.
What I want to kind of express about this, though, which is kind of really cool. A lot of defensive tackles, and I know defensive tackles have to get bulked up significantly. When he transitioned to professional wrestling, I mean, talk about someone that transformed his body, because he does not look like a traditional defensive tackle. And hats off to him, because that's not an easy transition to do. So I really don't point that out, but that just goes to show you how much of an elite athlete he is. And obviously, kind of similar to The Rock, I mean, listen, again, being a Division I athlete is just a huge honor. And another thing I need to point out too, because he played for Georgia Tech does not bend the rules or just let any athlete play. They still hold you that academic standard. So hats off to them for maintaining those grades, getting Division I scholarship, and obviously going to wrestling and just dominating. What do you have to say?
That was one thing I was going to point out, because when I didn't know what position that he played, and then when they said defensive tackle, I was like, he doesn't look like he's built like one. I mean, he's a big guy, don't get me wrong, but he's not as thick, I would say,
Yeah.
or as husky as I would think, but I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't know that about Georgia Tech either, about their standards, which is great. So that tells you,
Yeah.
he was a mathlete and an athlete.
Exactly.
And also too, I mean, I know he was signed to the Vikings. And then actually when he got diagnosed with leukemia back in '07, that was the end of his career. And that's when he switched to wrestling, which I think it was one of the best things that he could have ever done. And look at him now. He's head of the table.
Absolutely. And listen, on that note too, I don't think there is a such thing as a defensive tackle pretty boy, but he's in that category. So good for him.
He is.
All right, let's stick with that family. The Uso brothers, and again, I actually did not know that they played Division I football, but that is such a cool thing. And there's sort of a theme here. This entire family is just breeding athletes. So actually, give me a little bit of history on this, because I didn't know this until we kind of ran through this list.
I mean, I don't know much. I just knew that both Jimmy and Jay both played for West Alabama back in '03. I don't know if it lasted long or not, or if it was like one season, but I know they both played together. And I know that Jimmy was a linebacker.
Nice.
And that was all I got. But I'm like, makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Again, there's obviously something special brewing with his family, which is awesome. And, in addition to that, though, I will say, again, same thing. I'm going to bring this up also. If you're just on basically the practice squad for a Division I program, especially in the Power 4 conference, or just even playing like OS Alabama, I mean, you have to be really good. So, and obviously these guys' athletic ability speaks for themselves. I mean, they take some crazy bumps. And, hats off. And I just have to say that, this is we're going through this list, and like one by one, you're just like, these guys are just for real. And it's interesting that a lot of these guys, kind of turn to pro wrestling, but think about what the physical demands that they put on their bodies and the athletic ability you have to have in order to do both.
No, and to know that this is going on in their late teens, early 20s, imagine what they went through to train to get to this, because it doesn't happen when you're, it's not like Brock Lesnar, you can just jump onto anything, but they started when they were younger. and built this regime of training and strength and this mental strength. It's amazing.
1,000,000%. Okay, the next guy comes from a state where football is basically a religion. We've actually talked about this on our previous podcast. He, at one point in time, was this handsome, pretty boy, but you realize he's just someone that wanted to raise hell. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Again, him saying 2 words out of his mouth, he's a Texan. You know how serious they take football over there. I know he grew up in Edna, in a smaller town. And just to paint the picture, Florida, California, and Texas produces enough talent for the entire country. So when we tell you how competitive it is of being in, growing up in one of these states, I mean, you have to be super good all the time. So tell us a little bit about his collegiate career.
So, I mean, he came from Edna, and I believe he had a scholarship to like a community college, or that's where he started. And then he ended up being a linebacker for North Texas, and then got injured, and then he switched to defense. But you could tell if you watch old interviews and old biographies of him and what he looked like as a teen, the boy was built already, and he looked like a football player, and he looked like a Texas football player.
Absolutely.
And he looked good.
Absolutely. And again, this also goes to show you too. Also, look, I mean, anything that has to do with, athleticism, I mean, you have to maintain that type of, that workout regimen and all that kind of stuff. So I think to a degree, there are some things that kind of translate over. And this is obviously one of them. And again, I can't say this enough. I mean, Texas, like my brother actually lived in Dallas. I have family now in Texas too. I mean, Friday Night Lights. I mean, listen, Friday night, like town shut down. Like that is actually a true story. Town shut down for football games, 100%.
It's a way of life, and I respect that.
Absolutely. Now, sticking to the theme of kind of connections, another one who, when he first came out, he wore Cincinnati Bengal trunks. High-flying Brian Pillman played for the Cincinnati Bengals and had a great career with pro wrestling. And you know what's also interesting about this, for a guy that, football's supposed to be like tough, gritty, this guy's crazy athletic. He used to, fly over across the ring. So, I mean, this is just an amazing transition. I can only speak great things about him.
Same. That's how I feel. I love Flying Brian. I've always loved him. So like super charismatic. But the only thing that I remember growing up are those pants that he always wore with that curly hair. Yeah. And now it makes sense because I'm like, oh, and he was a Cincinnati Bengal. But I know before that he played defense for like the Red Hawks or something. So, crazy athletic, all of these guys. I mean, we're going to sound redundant, but you can't say enough about them. Yeah. They're just strength and endurance and power.
Yeah.
I love them.
All right. Next one. And I did not know this. I thought, if anything, he played college basketball given his size. But Kane. So I need you to help me with this because I had no idea he played college football. So what do you got?
I mean, he's a big old boy, and he used his size for Northeast Missouri State University. I don't know a lot about what position he played or how long his career was, but it kind of shocked me too, because you're like, oh, these tall guys, and obviously they're thinner because like, look at Nash. He was, he played for Tennessee and all of that. So you would assume with that kind of height, but I mean, it worked on the field, and he went into the ring and then politics. So, I mean,
kind of worked out.
Well-rounded.
Right? Yeah, I'd say so. All right, cool. Next one is, and we kind of talked about this one of our previous podcasts, but going back to just way down the football field, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. I do know that he was getting recruited by Arizona State. I know he ended up playing it was West Texas, right?
Yeah, he played for West Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, again, listen, he got a scholarship offer to Arizona State also. I mean, that's, again, I can't really, because I follow recruiting. So if you get a Division I offer, especially again to a Power 4 school, but even back then, I mean, that's so incredible. I know he played offensive line, and wow, what a, and he ended up having just a phenomenal career and with one of the greatest gimmicks of all time.
And I know. And fun fact with Ted DiBiase, with him playing at West Texas, he played at the same time on the same team with Tully Blanchard.
Oh, wow.
And Tito Santana. So
what?
how cool is that? And look at all three of them. Yeah.
Wow. I did not know Tito Santana played. That's so cool.
Yeah. I didn't either. I knew Tully played, but I didn't know Tito played. And then I'm like, oh, all three played together.
Yeah. Wow.
Funny.
All right. We're going to quickly go over this one because he is a Gator. Ugh. But again, and I'm pretty sure he did win a national title. So, but Titus O'Neil, listen, hats off to him. I want to give him his flowers. They've actually kind of done stories on how he's very charitable. I believe at one point in time, he actually took a bunch of homeless people and took them all to dinner. And, again, that just speaks volumes of the heart that he is. And I just think that's so cool. Although he is a Gator.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. It's really hard for me to say something great about the orange and blue, but whatever. But I love Titus and his thing. And then didn't he go on to play like arena football in Vegas too?
Yeah, I believe he did. He obviously, I believe he did. He went to WWE. Had an okay career. I mean, nothing out of the ordinary. I got to be honest. He was probably someone that they probably could have done more with, to be honest with you. But, but regardless, the fact that he did both is amazing. Next one, talk about someone that I actually didn't know until we went out of this, but Hacksaw Jim Duggan. He played for Ohio State, correct?
I know he was recruited by them. I'm assuming he played for them and then SMU, and then I believe like in the mid 70s, he was then recruited to the Falcons before he started wrestling.
Wow. So he actually made pro. Yeah.
Yeah. He's such a nice man too. So absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. For sure. And I know eventually he settled in Florida, and, he was obviously known for bringing out the 2x4, kind of had that American gimmick. And again, even if he played for SMU, Southern Methodist, who now Florida State plays this year because they are in the ACC, they obviously were wrapped up in controversy of Pony XS, but it's a heck of a football program. It is in Dallas. They nicknamed that school Southern Millionaire University, and they pumped out a lot of different pro football players. So hats off, and what an honor.
Yeah.
All right. We started off with Ron Simmons. We're now going to close it with his buddy, JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield. I know he played for the Raiders, and I know he played collegiately as well, but given his build, I kind of had a feeling he's also from Texas. So again, going back to the whole Texas thing, this is kind of it just to go to show you just how serious they take it and how competitive it is. But give us a little history on him.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I'm like, if you look at him, and even with his gimmick now in WWE, I'm like, you can't help but think that he was this Texas football player in his past, and he is. And I know he played for was it Abilene?
Abilene Christian, yeah.
Abilene, yeah. I know he played for them, and I was like, of course you did. So, yeah, I mean, it's some of these guys, it's just so obvious, and I can imagine with that clothesline, what he did on the field, that was probably the making of his famous clothesline.
This is a really fun episode from Tackles to Turnbuckles. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please be interactive and DM us at the Chutes and Ladders. Once again, I am Jason.
I'm Desiree Josen.
And until the next episode, have an awesome week. Go Knowles.
Bye, friends.